The road to Hollow Creek was narrower than Maya remembered. Tall pines leaned inward from both sides, their branches whispering secrets to the cold October wind. As her car crawled up the gravel path, the headlights caught glimpses of fog curling around the old stone pillars that marked the entrance to her childhood home, the Lewis Manor. She hadn't seen it in 20 years. The house where her father vanished. The house that never stopped calling her back. Maya parked and stepped out into the biting air. The forest around her was silent except for the distant hoot of an owl. The mansion loomed ahead, massive, decaying, yet strangely alive. Its windows reflected the moonlight like watchful eyes. Ivy crawled across the walls, gripping every crack and crevice as if trying to hold the house together. For a long moment, she stood still, gripping her suitcase handle, listening. The air carried a faint scent of rain and something older, like burnt wood and forgotten dust. She took a slow breath and whispered to herself. Greater than, it's just a house. Nothing more. Her footsteps echoed as she climbed the porch stairs. The wooden boards groaned under her weight, protesting her return. She reached the front door, the same heavy oak door her father used to lock every night. The brass key she had received from the lawyer felt icy in her palm. She slid it into the keyhole, twisted, and pushed. The hinges screamed. And then, silence. Dust motes swirled in the air as her flashlight swept across the grand hallway. Cobwebs clung to the chandelier like black lace. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, revealing the bare bones of the house beneath. But what struck her most was how everything seemed frozen in time. The same staircase, the same cracked mirror in the hallway, the same old grandfather clock, stopped at 11:47. The moment she stepped inside, she felt it. A pressure in the air. Like the house was holding its breath. She set down her bag and whispered into the silence. Greater than, I just came to sell you. That's all. And that's when she heard it. A faint whisper, a breath against her ear. Greater than, you came back. Maya spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs. The flashlight shook in her hand, its beam cutting across the hallway. Nothing. Only shadows. Only silence. She told herself it was the wind through the cracks in the windows, but the voice had been too close, too human. Trying to steady her breath, she climbed the staircase. The floorboards sighed under her feet as if remembering her weight from years ago. Each step stirred up old memories, her father's laugh, her mother's soft humming, the night everything changed. She stopped at the landing and looked down the corridor lined with portraits. Faces of ancestors she barely knew. Each pair of painted eyes seemed to follow her. And then she noticed it, a blank space at the end of the hall. One portrait was missing, her father's. Maya's stomach tightened. She remembered that portrait, her father in his detective's coat, a half smile on his face, his eyes sharp and alive. After his disappearance, the police had searched the house, but the painting had simply vanished. Strange, she muttered. Maybe it's in the attic. The wind howled outside. Thunder rolled in the distance. She found her old bedroom at the end of the corridor. The door creaked open to reveal faded wallpaper with stars and moons, her childhood drawings still taped to the wall. The sight of them hit her harder than she expected. She sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the old mattress sigh beneath her. The storm began to rage outside, rattling the windows. Lightning flashed, painting the room in white for a split second, and in that flash, she thought she saw movement in the mirror on the dresser. Something, standing behind her. She turned. Nothing. Just her own reflection, pale and shaken. She exhaled slowly and rubbed her temples. Enough of this, she whispered. Tomorrow, I call the realtor. But that night, as the clock struck midnight, Maya awoke to a soft sliding sound. Her eyes opened to see a small folded piece of paper being pushed under her bedroom door. Her breath caught. She got up slowly, picked up the note, and unfolded it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was neat, sharp, and heartbreakingly familiar. Her father's. The message was short, just 4 words. Greater than, don't trust the mirrors. Maya froze, the paper shaking in her hand. The wind outside screamed like a voice she almost recognized. And for the first time, she realized, she wasn't alone in the house. Maya barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's handwriting, the uneven strokes, the faded ink, the warning. Greater than, don't trust the mirrors. She had checked the entire room twice before lying down again, but sleep never came. The storm outside clawed at the windows, howling like something that wanted to get in. Inside the house, silence pressed against her ears. Even the ticking of the old clock had stopped. When dawn crept through the curtains, pale and reluctant, she decided to find answers. By mid-morning, the rain had eased, but the house still smelled of wet wood and decay. She made her way to the study, her father's room, the one place she had avoided as a child. The door groaned as she pushed it open. Dust floated in the weak sunlight like fine smoke. The room looked almost untouched, as if he had just stepped out for a moment and never returned. Books lined the shelves, but many had toppled over. Papers were scattered across the desk, old coffee cups fossilized with mold. And in the corner, beside the fireplace, an antique mirror stood tall, its surface dim and cloudy. Her heart thudded. A mirror. She walked toward the desk first, scanning the mess for any clue. On the table lay her father's leather-bound journal, its edges charred as if someone had tried to burn it. The last few pages were unreadable, but one half-burned sentence still stood out. Greater than, the reflection isn't mine anymore. Maya's breath hitched. She flipped the pages backward. Dates, names, fragments of thoughts, but everything else was cryptic. Voices from glass, one line read. Another said, "They can see through us." She looked up at the mirror again. It towered almost to the ceiling, framed in dark wood, carved with strange vine-like patterns. The glass was cracked in the upper corner, warping her reflection slightly. She stepped closer and studied her face, pale skin, sleepless eyes, dark hair tangled from the night. But then, something was off. Her reflection blinked. Before she did, Maya froze. Her breath fogged the glass, but the reflection's didn't. Its lips curved into the faintest smile, though hers remained still. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." The reflection tilted its head slowly, eyes dark and knowing, and then, for a split second, she saw someone else standing behind it. A man. "Dad," she breathed. She spun around. Nothing but the empty room. The air had turned icy, her skin prickling as if she were being watched from all sides. She gripped her arms, trying to calm her shaking. Then, a faint sound came from the fireplace, a whisper, low and broken. "Greater than, Maya." She stumbled back, nearly tripping over a fallen chair. "Who's there?" The whisper came again, closer this time. "Find the key, behind the portrait." Her flashlight flickered. She turned it toward the wall where her father's portrait had once hung, the same one missing upstairs. But now, impossibly, it was there. Again, hanging neatly on the wall, staring down at her. Her pulse hammered in her throat. She approached it slowly, the floor creaking beneath her steps. The face in the painting seemed different now, more tired, the eyes darker. Almost as if it had aged with time. Lightning flashed outside, filling the room with a brief, blinding glow. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw movement inside the mirror again, a man's silhouette standing just behind her reflection. When the light faded, she was alone. The storm roared louder. The old house groaned as if alive. Maya reached for the portrait's edge. Her fingers brushed the frame. It was cold, almost metallic. She tugged, but it didn't move. Then, the whisper came once more, right next to her ear this time. "Greater than, behind it." She jerked back, her flashlight dropping and clattering to the floor. The beam rolled across the walls, slicing through dust and darkness. She grabbed the frame again and pulled harder. It came loose with a sharp crack, revealing an empty wall. But it wasn't empty. There, taped behind the space where the painting had been, was a small brass key. Old, rusted, but real. Her hand trembled as she held it up. The moment she touched it, the temperature in the room dropped even lower. Frost began creeping across the edges of the mirror, thin and white. Then the whisper returned, deep and layered, no longer just her father's voice, but something else underneath. "Greater than, the door waits below." The candle on the desk blew out, plunging her into darkness. And in that final flicker of light before it died, her reflection didn't just smile. It turned its head, looking over its shoulder, toward the basement door at the end of the hall. The storm had passed, but the house was still breathing. Every window trembled in its frame, every wall groaned like it carried a heartbeat of its own. Maya stood in the hallway clutching the brass key she had found behind her father's portrait. Her hand was shaking, not from fear of what she might find, but from fear that she already knew. The whisper from the study still echoed in her mind. "Greater than, the door waits below." The basement. She had never been down there as a child. Her father had always kept it locked. "That place isn't for you," he used to say. Now she understood why. The key was old, its teeth rusted and jagged. She ran her thumb along the edges, then started down the corridor. The air grew colder with each step, her breath visible in faint, trembling wisps. As she descended the narrow staircase to the lower floor, the house seemed to hold its breath again, like it knew she was about to uncover its secret. At the bottom, the hallway opened into a dim stone cellar. The walls were damp, the air thick with mold. The only light came from a weak bulb swinging overhead, its flicker casting ghostly shadows that danced on the walls. Then she saw it. At the far end, an iron door, half buried in the wall, its surface carved with strange circular markings. The same kind of markings she had seen on the frame of the mirror upstairs. Her pulse quickened. She approached, the old floorboards moaning underfoot. When she pressed the key into the lock, it fit perfectly, as though it had been waiting for her all this time. With a deep breath, she turned it. A low click echoed through the cellar, followed by a faint hum, almost like a sigh of relief. The door creaked open. Behind it was a small, windowless room lined entirely with mirrors. 10, maybe 12 of them, each covered by thin white sheets that fluttered as if something beneath them was breathing. Maya hesitated at the threshold. Her heart pounded in her ears. And then the whisper came again, softer now, almost pleading. Greater than, free us. Her hands trembled as she reached for the nearest sheet and pulled it down. The mirror behind it shimmered faintly, and she gasped. Her father's face looked back at her. Not a reflection. A face. His eyes were tired, filled with sorrow, his lips moving silently behind the glass. She stumbled backward, knocking into another mirror. The sheet fell away, and another face stared out, her mother's, pale and still. Every mirror held a person. Some old, some young. All trapped behind the glass. The whispers grew louder, overlapping voices calling from beyond the surface. Help us, break the glass, set us free. Maya's eyes darted across the room until they landed on the largest mirror at the far end. It was uncovered, polished, gleaming. And in it, she saw herself standing beside a man. Her father. He looked alive, whole. He smiled at her, just as he used to, the warmth in his eyes breaking through the cold dread that had followed her all night. Dad, she whispered. He nodded slowly, his hand lifting toward her from inside the reflection. You can free us, he said. His voice was clear now, echoing around the room as though it came from everywhere at once. Maya stepped closer. The air around the mirror rippled like heat rising off a flame. She raised her trembling hand and touched the glass. It was warm, soft, alive. The moment her fingertips met his, the surface rippled wider. The room filled with a deep hum, then a scream of wind that knocked the sheets from every mirror at once. Faces flashed through the glass, men, women, children, all crying out as light burst from their reflections. Maya tried to pull back, but her hand was stuck. Her reflection smiled, its eyes darker than hers, its lips whispering words she couldn't hear. The light grew brighter, swallowing everything in white. And then, silence. The next morning, the realtor arrived to check the property. The storm had left the ground soaked, the sky gray and heavy. He knocked twice on the front door. No answer. Inside, the mansion was cold and empty. A faint layer of dust had already settled on the floor, as if no one had walked there in years. He wandered through the rooms calling out, Miss Lewis. Maya Lewis. No reply. In the study, he found the fireplace cold, the desk neat, as though someone had tidied it recently. Only one thing seemed out of place, a small, antique mirror standing upright beside the window. He paused to wipe the dust from its surface. For a moment, his reflection looked perfectly normal. Then, as he turned to leave, he noticed something, two faint figures behind him in the mirror. A man and a woman, standing side by side. Both watching silently. He blinked, looked back, no one there. But in the mirror, they were still smiling.